All right, good evening. Today is
6:59?
May 8th. We're going a minute early here. Bruins are on in a little while. Let's go.
Is that the football team?
Might be rugby. Free Jacks are on. No, I don't know if the Free Jacks are on. So, like I said, May 8th. So we are here tonight to discuss. How I see it, there's one school article and 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16 for the town meeting for Monday the 13th. So with that, coming out of the gate here, what I see is we do have a request in front of us for, and I'll read it here in a moment, to move money from the reserve fund that was set up for the public school, the Saugus Public Schools. And I'll read it as stated here. The subject is for after-school enrichment activities for students outside of school hours. This would include after-school programming, tutoring, and other enrichment activities. Looks like six-week sessions after school, included at the Veterans Early Learning Center, the Belmonte STEAM Academy, as well as the Saugus Middle School and the Saugus High School. I'm not going to get into all the details. I will ask in a moment for a description, but I will read the anticipated costs. To see if the town will authorize funding from the Supplemental Student Support Reserve Fund, it's a tongue twister, in the amount of $500,000 for the purpose of funding school enrichment activities and programming. This would primarily fund activities throughout the 24-25 school year for after-school programming. The funding would pay for supervision, cleaning, service providers, as well as any resources needed. The supervisor would oversee the programming and coordinate and schedule the offerings. I do see Mr. Serino and Mr. Hashem with us this evening, so would ask if there's anything that you would want to say in support of it.
You just read the article as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. That is Article 10. Should have just started with that. Article 10, as it's presented for the town meeting, to see if the town will vote to a sum of money from the Supplemental Student Support Reserve Fund. We need an acronym for that. It's easy to say. For the purpose of supplementing educational programming, not supplanting it, in pursuant of Article 2 of the October 22nd, 2022 special town meeting that was voted by town meeting. The Saugus Public Schools, the Reserve Fund, is hereby incorporated by reference. Said fund shall be transferred to a special reserve fund for the extended purposes stated in the proposal in Article 2 from the town meeting of October of 2022. I apologize, I stumbled over my words there. We need an easy acronym for that moving forward. So now, Mr. Serino and Mr. Hashem, I did read through this. Seems like it's some pretty interesting things to present to the children in the schools. So.
Do you need me to go, can I stay here or?
Yeah, you can stay right there.
No, I can kind of explain it. So, we already piloted this at the Belmonte. We were fortunate enough to have Dr. Lukey, our principal, pilot the program. We had some ESSER funding that we used to staff it. We also have a robotics program at the Belmonte as well. So she did this spring a 6-week program already this past year, one or 2 days a week. I can give you what she actually did. I expanded it for this, so she did arts and crafts, Spanish, study skills, newspapers, a stage class, Girls on the Run, which is a program to empower young women, and there was board games. So the whole point is to do a couple of things. Get the students that traditionally don't take part in extracurricular activities, and even ones that do, to expand some of the offerings that are both academically impactful as well as social emotionally impactful. So we're trying to pick kind of a mix between that. I envision the program to be 4 days a week in each of the buildings as quickly as we can get them up and running. We will be, I know one of the biggest ticket items that I think we have to go with, that I think there's a huge outcry for, is robotics at the middle school. We have a robotics program at the Belmonte, and we would like to expand that, because every year we have the kids come before the school committee and showcase what they did in the robotics competition. It's certainly something, and that would be a chunk of the funding would naturally go to getting the supplies for the robotics and making sure that we have that. And that would be something that we could use in classrooms and moving forward. So it's just trying to get the kids and the students something to do after school that's a positive, and opening up the buildings to be like they were envisioned before COVID, and that is more like of a youth center, so to speak, so they can take part in these activities. So that's sort of what we're proposing. The money would go into a fund. It would only be spent on these kind of things. If for whatever reason the interest was pretty big at the Belmonte. There were over 100 kids that took part in the 6-week program. We'd like to keep the numbers in each offering between 15 and 18 so that the kids can have really a hands-on experience, but that doesn't mean we can't have more than one offering in a topic. Like the newspaper group over 6 weeks took and basically published a school newspaper, and I wish I brought it because they presented before school committee and they were really, you know,
It was detailed.
it was really
nice.
detailed, and they were so excited about what they had produced, and they had a drama one where they told us all about how they did this and that with the drama, so we're really looking forward to it. And like I said, we put this funding in an account that's only for this, and if money was left over, we'd go into the summer, we'd go into the next year, whatever we could do with that and keep the program going.
When you look at the program too, I
Sorry.
think a lot of it leans on educational, right, with tutoring, math, the things that these kids need help with that maybe they're not getting after school, or they're not getting from what they need in the classroom. So I think when you look at what we're trying to build here, I think it's to get the kids engaged that really maybe aren't engaged, and get them socially aware with the kids that they're going to school with. So.
And one of the things that I put in there, and I know it seems, there's a couple of things that we put in there that I know that seems like it's not, you know, a big ticket thing, is basic keyboarding skills is something the kids definitely need. They're good with their 2 thumbs on a phone, but they do struggle with basic keyboarding, and when they have Chromebooks and MCAS testing, it's something they need to develop skills with. The other thing is just a book club in general. When I was high school principal, there was always the summer reading, and we wanted to make the summer reading a little bit more personal or individual. So what we did, and this kind of phased out with COVID when that hit, was we had teachers pick a book that they wanted to read themselves and give it to the students, and put them all out there and have students sign up to read the same book as a teacher over the summer. And then during when we had mentor room, for the first couple of weeks of school, we'd meet as a book club and discuss the book with the students, so we had a chance to do that. I think a book club after school would be a huge win, because I think what it will do is it'll show let the kids work on some books, try to pick something that's of interest to them, talk about it in a less formal setting than an ELA class, where they can experience like a book that they may choose as opposed to books that are assigned. So that was one of the other things that I threw out there, where it's not 100% academic, but certainly reinforces the academic skills that I think help, like the newspaper club does. So I mean, those type of things I think are all big wins for us if we can get the kids involved. And the one thing I do want to say, and I credit Dr. Lukey with it, when she came to me and we were putting this together in the background, she asked if she could do something almost exactly like this as a pilot, and it was extremely successful.
I personally think it's great. I love the fact that you get some of these kids together in a non-traditional setting, because I think it's gonna also get some of these students, if they're struggling to something, as you said, Mrs. Serino, that they can ask their peers, and it's a less stressful environment. And the typing thing, I think many of us in this room had typing class at some point in high school, but I watch my kids type and they can't type.
And I think we all assume they can because they're so
Computers.
young and skilled at computers, but they're really not. They're on a cell phone doing this, and
The only thing I didn't see in here was cursive writing.
So they can read the Constitution.
No, thank you for that,
no,
Mr. Hashim.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one question. So
Yeah, of course.
where it's coming out of the reserve and it's 500,000, is the thought to just see what we can get up and running? Because obviously, once the 500,000's out, we're in a spot where we don't have the funding. So it's just to kind of like test the water and see if it works, and then
Correct.
if it works, then something we look to fund long term.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And like, we did it in a small, and it was successful. We want to get it bigger and see if it can be successful. Because again, one of the things, and I agree that we want to make kids feel positive about learning and see it a little bit outside the classroom. The other thing I think is really important is that these schools be open for the kids after the dismissal bell, having something to do in the school, so they feel like that's almost a second home and they're comfortable in the schools doing something else. We have that when a kid plays basketball or a kid's in the play, but there's a lot of kids that don't play basketball, and there's a lot of kids that don't want drama. And this is for everybody who wants to take advantage of this.
The school was built to be a community center. That's what it was built for. It was built for the community, and, you know, the kids take advantage of it, but not as much as they should, and I don't think we do either, so.
I think it's a great way to try to, I wanna say forced community building,
Yeah.
but you're gonna get some community
I
building
think the
out of it.
biggest age groups that will be impacted by this would be the Belmonte STEAM Academy, the 2 to 5, and the middle school 6 to 8. Because those are the ones that don't have a ton of after-school activities. Like, once they get to high school, I don't know how big it will be. It'll probably be more tutoring or little niche clubs. But for the middle school and the upper elementary, you know, we see the kids always looking for something to do, and we want to provide them something to do that's in a positive direction.
I agree.
So just to, I think, add, Mr. Chairman, through you, is that the school, the superintendent and the school committee, we've met and discussed a lot of this for months now and even longer. So I want to say, I think that's a great, you know, a great collaboration as far as trying to discuss what they want to do. And I'm, you know, happy, I think this is great that they're, you know, taking the initiative and being able to put something in there that hopefully will, you know, close the gap and improve achievement. You know, I mean, we talked about, I think, some of the things they could use. They could have even stipends for teachers to help with MCAS, to help, you know, kids prepare for those, rather than just, you know, going in cold turkey. I think they talk about the different things where they did an enrichment program at the Belmonte. It was pretty successful, very positive. I don't think there's any parents that are gonna, if their kids want to do something or they need something, they're gonna be able to put them into something after school. Especially as kids, you know, if you have kids that are 4th, 5th grade, you know that the math is different than we learned it, and that's a struggle. And to get that extra help by having the ability to do that after school is tremendous, where it doesn't exist now. Just to sort of address, I think one of the other questions is that the money that we have in the reserve fund, this is not sustainable. In other words, this is what they're talking about is two different things, I think, in some ways. So I want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing financially. So the money that we have in the reserve fund is specifically to work on with the pandemic and try to put money towards kids and children in the whole country, right? that have fallen behind or have lost vocabulary or done different things, and that's what we're looking to do, and that money specifically is to touch the kids. So that it's, over a 2, 3, 4 year span, whatever it is that we have that money, to put programs in that are gonna bring those kids up to, at the par. Moving forward, long-term sustainability, they'd have to figure out how this is budgeted. So
Yeah,
this
they-
isn't like, this isn't, I don't want this to be the, we're gonna have all-day free kindergarten, and then what we do is, after the money runs out, we then ask just for more money from the fire and police and DPW to fund that. And we have to make, correction, I think there's a ton of money here, to be able to do enough things over an extended period of time, because you're not gonna bring kids up, and I think that, in some ways, we're a little bit behind, but we're in good shape, and I think I mentioned it before, I have people from other communities calling me saying, you guys are heroes as far as you guys are not having the budgetary issues that our school departments are having with cuts and whatnot. And being able to have additional monies that are set aside specifically to work on that achievement. I think the goal for everybody is to make this a top-rated school system by improving it, and this specifically, this fund is for that. It's for something, so that it's forward-facing to touch the kids, and it affects the kids, and hopefully we'll be able to bring achievements and MCAS scores, and the whole district will rise. If the kids are, and everybody understands this from sports and from academics, if you're missing some of the pieces in the foundation and this is what goes on, everybody knows this sort of at the elementary level, and then they move up to the middle school teachers or administrators say, what's going on? They blame the lower school, how come we didn't prepare the kids? And then the same thing when they go on to the high school say, well, the kids can't, do this. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on. I mean, I have kids, you have children, a lot of us, have grandkids and stuff too as well, but a lot of this, even with the MCAS, like with my own kid, it's about how much stamina they have in reading. The reading, not just Saugus, across the whole country. Reading has really fallen off, and the vocabulary has dropped off dramatically over the last 3, 4, 5, 4 years since the pandemic. They have audiobooks, people aren't reading as much, there's electronics, they're listening to stuff. You have this AI that does writing for you now. So there's a whole aspect of the MCAS and scoring and why people on SATs are not doing as well. There's a whole element of that. And I think that the pandemic exacerbated a lot of that. And so, again, just this is money towards doing what, I think that what you'd want to do on a wish list to say, how do we, and I always use this simple example, if you have a basketball team and they all struggle with dribbling with the left hand, 50% of them, you spend 20 minutes of practice dribbling left hand. After a few months, you're gonna see the kids, all of a sudden, everybody's pretty proficient with their left hand. This is similar to that. I know that's kind of basic thinking, but being able to have those enrichment programs and having the resources and being able to tap into that, and now specifically being used for that, rather than, like, hey, I'd like to buy a new truck for the, for the school department. That's not what the money's for. This money is put aside, that's what they've committed to using it for, is to specifically try to improve and bring the things that are needed to bring kids back up, so that we can improve our scores and our achievement and as each class and the school district as a whole.
The only question I had, maybe for you, Wendy, is I forget how much money we allotted for this, and then how much will be left after this?
Yeah, we
assuming it
can
gets
take a
voted?
look. I think there's, there's a few $1 million.
That's what I thought.
But
It was like
this is only
$3
$500,000,
million.
yeah.
Okay.
So there'll be, there's money there. I think like anything, and I don't, this isn't a slight against them. They're sort of trying to do an initiative, and they're new to this. But this is part of, I think, I'm always the bad guy, right? But I take in feedback that I hear from town meeting members, from the residents, from parents, the school district, finance committee, selectmen, everybody, and try to figure out, okay, we've identified some issues, we understand how we can't get from A to Z, because we fight, different fights come up and different disputes and discussions and debates. But I think that this is a way people feel some confidence that the money's set aside, now the money's gonna go into a special account that's specifically for that whatever they expend, that is gonna have to come here and be vetted, right? To say, make sure that that's the money they use. They can come and say, we wanna buy a truck, here's an invoice for a brand new truck, it's not gonna get approved. So I think that gives a sense of confidence and assurances for the finance committee and hopefully for town meeting and the public. And I think this is, because there's always, like anything, we talked about this with the vocational school, with the Saugus School District, it's a zero-based budget, right? So, I mean, a bottom line budget, so they're getting the monies, and then they could have a budget that says this is what we're planning on spending the money, and then they get the money and they don't have to spend it on that, and they historically have, not them, when I say them, it's the big, the big T, right? So I think those things there have always caused concerns, and I think this here, we can all agree that this is what it is, and we can all be part of helping support the schools and support the students. And when we say it's about the kids, this is about the kids, and I'm really, hopeful and very optimistic that this is gonna be a wonderful thing for the thing. And then once they get these things running, like you talk about, 3-4 years down the road, if the money's running, now we say, hey, we can support this because this is what they use the money for. And maybe we figure out another way to make sure it doesn't get cut and put to something else, and that those programs don't get cut, because we had all these programs before school, after school, we had all kinds of, tutoring and different things that went on. And it's sort of like through time, things get cut and budgets, and like I say to people, we had a special town meeting last week, and, we put money, on Monday, we put money in certain places, like we have a little bit of money to do that, but then we may not have that in a year or two. So you have to sort of plan for the future, that we can pay for the vocational school, we can, if we don't get the funding, and have money and different things. And I don't think people looked at the big picture for 20 or 30 years. Wendy and I, and we talk about this all the time, and it's really about trying to figure out long-term, and I think that this is the right approach, and I think we can, work together and all be part of supporting what they're trying to do, and be 100% behind it, rather than say, oh, I'm gonna vote, I'm just concerned how much money should they get, and if they get that much money, where does it get spent? And there's some autonomy, and it should be, there's a balance of that part of it, because we're not in education, they are. So I'm proud of that, what they've done, and where they're headed, and very optimistic and supportive.
All right. Any further discussion on the committee? I hear a motion.
Motion made.
Chair will second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you, Mr. Serena. Thank you, Mr. Hashem.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all,
Thank you very much.
much appreciated.
Good luck.
Alright. So moving on to Article 11, which is to see if the town will vote to ratify, approve, and confirm the vote adopted under Article 14 of the warrant of the May 3rd, 2021 annual town meeting, pursuant to which the town voted to authorize the borrowing of $2,906,400 to pay the cost of funding water main projects, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto.
Because I took this one more comment.
So you think it's fine? So, yeah, so this is just, we've done this before. We took a vote at town meeting, and for whatever reason, it may not have been taken correctly back then, and now we're trying to go off of long-term bonds and borrowing, and the bond council reviews everything, and they come back and say, we need you to reaffirm the vote that was already taken and appropriated for technical reasons. And so this is basically what revoting what was already voted, and we already moved forward back.
So we didn't borrow the 2.9 in 21?
No, so,
Okay.
back in 2021, we had Article 14, and that was the article that is for the MWRA,
Oh, yeah.
0% loan authorization. And at that time, we requested an appropriation of $2,906,400. And as the town manager said, there was an issue either in the vote or the posting of the meeting, and so when bond council, we send it to bond council, they give us what they call the green light to go ahead and
Sure.
borrow, and so we weren't able to do that, and what they found was a defect in either the posting or the vote, so they give us this language to go back and reaffirm.
Okay. Any discussion from the committee? Motion?
Motion.
Chair will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Article 12. Alright, so Article 12 is, alright, so to see if the town will vote to authorize an amount to be expended from each of the revolving funds listed below, being authorized under the Town of Saugus bylaws as amended April 9th, 2018, Section 405.00, Departmental Revolving Funds for the ensuing fiscal year 2025. Includes the Saugus Senior Center Programs and Activities, the Senior Center Lunch Program, the Water System Cross Connection Program, the Town of Saugus Compost Program, and the Youth and Rec Programs and Activities.
So, Mr. Chairman, for you, some of you that have been around for a while, if you remember, we used to actually authorize the revolving accounts. We don't do that anymore, they've changed that with the Department of Revenue. So we actually appropriate the maximum amount that can be used in those revolving accounts each time, each year annually. And that's what we've been doing, what, for 4 or 5 years?
Since 2018.
Okay,
Yep.
time flies, so more than that.
So we appropriate the maximum amount per the DOR. Okay.
Yeah, we used to have to, do both, right? Or do
So
we just,
we just had to have town meeting reauthorize the revolving fund, so
Every year.
now that it's a bylaw, the funds stay in existence, but we need town meeting, based on the FinCom's recommendation, to vote a spending limit of what, the amount that can be spent.
and then we try to estimate that, right, and I mean, we haven't had that happen, but if we, for some reason, it became different, but it's, as you know, it's a revolving account, what comes in, then goes out.
Right. Any discussion?
These are more like stuff that we do annually there.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Chair will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Next will be Article 14, which in our packet is just in front of us. So 14, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow a certain amount at 0% interest from the MWRA Local Pipeline Assistance Program for the purpose of designing and constructing improvements to water pipelines or take action thereto.
And this is just our annual borrowing at the this is the one that's the 0% interest.
So in the packet, Mr. Chairman, there was a spreadsheet that came to us from the MWRA, sort of outlines the allocation and fund utilization by all communities in their water system assistance program. So the programs usually run for a period of 10 years. Saugus's allocation was $9,688,000. So we're asking for 1 year's allocation to be authorized by town meeting, which is $968,800.
Okay.
So essentially what we try to do is take advantage each year of this program with the 0% interest, so that we're just paying on principal. I think with the sewer, 2%, and then sometimes there's forgiveness of principal on the sewer side, right? That doesn't happen on the water side.
It doesn't.
No. So we just try to take advantage, and this just goes towards the projects that we do in the infrastructure.
Make the motion.
Chair will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So now we will go to Article 15. So to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for construction and reconstruction of various streets and sidewalks, including the payment of costs incidental or related thereto. To determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise, or to take any action relative thereto. And then just to furthermore, this article is requesting $350,000 and includes,
From certified free cash.
Okay.
And this is to work on some of the reconstruction of roadways and sidewalks, including payment of costs incidental. And these are for some of the unaccepted roadways that Chapter 90 money doesn't cover. And we try to allot a little bit each, everything's getting much more expensive, but we try to target a few of those unaccepted roadways. Unfortunately, Saugus has a lot of, a high percentage of, which if you remember in the last few years, we've accepted more roadways, so that we increases our Chapter 90 formula allocation. But this is, and we have a few of the roads here that are listed that are on the radar to be done, and it just depends on how much money, and if it's, comes back, then we would do more. If it comes back higher in the bids, then we would do less. But what we generally do is try to incorporate what we do for roadways, at the same time. And generally, we'll have one paving season within the summer, and once in a while, we'll have one in the fall, and one that starts over the summer. But this year here, we actually have, with all the monies involved in grants, I think probably the most money that we've ever spent to doing roadways. I think it's like $3.2 million with, between the Chapter 90, the unaccepted roadways, and some of the state grants that we've been allotted. Normally we do 7 or 8, 900,000. We're doing, I think, $3.2 million worth of road construction this year.
And then if similar to the past, once this road construction is done, then you can actually accept them, so they'd be included in that?
No, not necessarily, because of the, sometimes we got all the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
A lot of these have to do with, how wide they are and different issues within them. And unfortunately, Saugus is, sort of, I think it has a lot to do with stuff we've been trying to clean up for a few years with the planning board and in the past where they, with inspectional services, that people got sign-offs and never had as-bills, and they may not be constructed the way they were approved, and so that causes issues with trying to get them accepted through the town.
Okay.
So it gets a little more complicated. We got a lot of the low-hanging fruit roadways, but there's a lot still out there that need engineered drawings and quite expensive.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a motion.
Motion.
Chair will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And just to add to that, to the roadways, understand, we do, every few years, we update it, but we have consultants that help rate some of the things, some of the roadways with criteria of what condition they are, how much they've been driven on, and that's how some of those are recommended and determined by the department, DPW.
Gotcha. All right, then we'll move on to Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money for the purpose of repairing or replacing town guardrails, including payment of costs incidental or related thereto, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise, and any action relative thereto. And here it looks like a request for $150,000 from certified free cash.
Yeah, and this is ongoing each year. We've asked for, or DPW has requested it, and I've supported putting this in. It's guardrail replacement. There's guardrails all over town, or new ones that we put in that we repair and replace, and this is looking for money to continue to do that. We usually put it out to bid and move forward with that. Guardrails that are struck by vehicles, obviously we have a system in place and we do the best we can do where the police will mark something off on a report so that we know that there might be some insurance proceeds to be able to go after to have the town property fixed if they hit a hydrant or a town property or a guardrail. But there are other ones that, they get hit and no one knows, they've never been reported, and they get older or whatever, but this is part of the annual plan. We have a list of guardrails that they try to take on each year.
Any discussion by the committee? Excuse me, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Chair will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that completes the articles that we have supporting documentation for this evening. That's all I had on tonight's agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Cheryl will second, all in favor?
Oh, one minute
Oh.
before we adjourn.
Sorry.
Do we have a cherry sheet? Any new cherry sheets?
I don't think so, but they just keep updating, right?
I think they're through the House right now. There's one, they have to go through the Senate and then to committee.
Okay.
So it'll be a while, I mean, basically, so, I think you guys know how we budget, we try not to go by the cherry sheet because they change. If we went by what the governor's requests, or what they were saying they're gonna give for aid, then our budget would be a mess, we'd be making cuts, which they used to do right through FinCom. We don't, we sort of have a good, they've been doing this for a lot of years, and we have discussions on this with the town accountant and Wendy and myself, and outside agencies. And they're very good at presenting what we think it'll end up at, and that way there we don't have, we make minimal adjustments. But when, back in the day, what they would do is they'd go by, put a budget together that's, and then they'd have to make cuts right through FinCom as every announcement come out with a new, you know, when it went to the House or the Senate, and they'd be like, oh, they cut it, they this and that, and then they go to committee, and the whole thing would change, and then you'd have to cut in the budget of what was proposed just to be able to get the town meeting, or they'd leave it in there and have structural deficits. But we don't do that, we're pretty comfortable with, we really look at it, but we don't focus too much on it.
It is the 10th.
Motion to adjourn then?
So you want them to, did they?
Yeah.
So,
They voted the 3rd, so it is.
so, just to back up a little bit, maybe we can take up, one of the articles is a typo, and that way then we don't have to make a change at the town meeting floor.
Which one?
Yeah, they can vote at the 10th, and then as a, just say it's a typo, and then they can make that.
It was the one we re-voted, right?
Yeah.
Article
Article 11.
14.
Yeah, it says the 3rd, but it's, needs to be the 10th,
Yeah, I just put the minutes online.
so maybe you could just.
Oh, voted the meeting, May 10th, okay.
My documentation had the 10th, which was correct. I just want that noted, that bond council gave us the
So that should read to reaffirm the previous vote of town meeting May 3rd, 2021?
Should say May 10th, 2021.
It's on the warrant is wrong.
Oh, okay, so I'm like, wait, it says it right here,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, so maybe you voted at the 10th.
We did vote based off the 10.
We
That
did,
was what
yeah.
was
That
on
was the
our
motion,
back.
so I think we're fine, and then we'll just have a town meeting. It's a typo, it's, you know, it's not substantial.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Chair will second, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I knew it was.